The grand meeting hall of the Galactic Empire was filled with noise and movement, as representatives from over 100 worlds moved around the massive floating table that sat in the center. Everyone was waiting for the doors to open. Many of the alien diplomats whispered to each other about the newcomers from Earth, a small blue planet that most had never heard of until recently. What made Earth interesting was how fast they had developed space travel technology. They had gone from basic rockets to faster-than-light travel in just 30 years after discovering how to split atoms. This was unusual, and it made the Empire curious and a little worried. Emperor Dai-Ho sat on his big throne that floated above everyone else. He was dressed in shining gold robes with gems that sparkled in the bright lights of the hall. He looked bored, but his eyes kept moving to the main doors where the Earth human would enter. Soon his chief advisor Tay stood next to the throne, holding a datapad with information about Earth and its people. Tay had a smirk on his face as he read the reports. Earth was so far behind the Empire in many ways. The doors finally opened and the room got quiet as a single woman walked in. She was smaller than most aliens had expected. Humans were not very tall compared to many galactic species. She had short black hair and wore a plain black suit with no fancy decorations like the other diplomats. Her face was calm, and she walked with confidence, even though she was alone in a room full of strangers. Ambassador Jia-sun stopped in the middle of the room and looked up at the Emperor without showing fear. This surprised many of the watching aliens. They were used to new species being nervous when meeting the powerful Galactic Empire for the first time. But this human seemed unimpressed by the fancy room and important people. What caught everyone's attention was the strange drawing on her neck. It was a tattoo with black lines forming what looked like a small house with chicken legs under it. This marking was visible above her suit collar, and many aliens stared at it with confusion. In their cultures, only criminals or very low-class people would mark their skin like this. Emperor Dai-Ho raised his hand and the room became completely silent. He looked down at the human woman with cold eyes and spoke in a loud voice that everyone could hear. "Your tattoo, Earth Ambassador. It shows poor discipline to mark your body so crudely. In our empire, only criminals bear such markings." Several aliens around the room laughed at this. Some pointed at the tattoo and whispered to each other. They thought Earth must be a very backward place if their chosen representative had such a strange and primitive marking on her skin. Jia smiled, but the smile did not reach her eyes. She looked at the Emperor and spoke clearly so everyone could hear. "This tattoo has meaning where I come from. Perhaps someday I will share its story." Her voice was soft but strong, and she did not seem bothered by the laughing Tay. The Emperor's advisor stepped forward, looking down at his datapad. "I see you are the only representative from Earth. He said we expected more of you to come. Have you no others worthy of meeting us?" Jia kept her calm face. "I speak for all of Earth," she said. "One voice is enough when the message is clear." Tay laughed at this and looked at the Emperor before continuing. "We have studied your planet's history of space travel. Impressive for beginners, but you have much to learn. Earth will benefit greatly from our guidance and protection." Jia tilted her head slightly. "Protection?" she asked, her voice still quiet, but somehow it carried across the silent chamber. Everyone was listening. "Now the galaxy is dangerous for small, weak worlds," said Tay with a thin smile. "Fortunately, we offer very reasonable terms for our protection services." His smile grew wider, showing teeth that were too sharp. "We can discuss the payment details later." Several aliens nodded in agreement. They knew what was happening. The Empire often did this to new worlds, made them pay for protection that they didn't really need. It was a way to take resources from planets too weak to fight back. Jia nodded slowly. "I see. Where I come from, we have a saying. The tallest trees catch the most wind. Perhaps the Galactic Empire should worry about its own protection." The chamber filled with laughter again, louder this time. What could one small planet with only basic space technology do against the might of an empire that had thousands of worlds and millions of warships? The idea was so funny to them that some aliens had to hold their sides as they laughed. The Emperor held up his hand again and the room got quiet. "We welcome Earth to the galactic community," he said in a voice that sounded kind but wasn't really. "We will help your primitive world grow if you follow our guidance and obey our laws." Jia bowed her head slightly. "Earth is happy to join the galactic community," she said. "We look forward to learning from all of you." Her words were polite, but something in her voice made some of the older diplomats feel nervous. Though they couldn't explain why, as the meeting continued, many officials came to speak, with Gia asking questions about Earth and making comments about how backward humans must be. She answered every question with calm words, never showing anger when they insulted her world or her people. One blue-skinned diplomat pointed at her tattoo and asked, "What does that strange marking mean? Is it your family sign or maybe a mark of your rank?" Gia touched the tattoo gently. "It is a reminder," she said, "of someone from our stories. Someone who should not be forgotten." "What kind of someone?" asked the diplomat. "Someone who protected what was hers," Gia answered, "and who made people regret taking what did not belong to them." The diplomat laughed, but moved away quickly. Something about the way she spoke made him uncomfortable, though the words themselves were simple. As the meeting went on for hours, Gia stood in the same spot, never sitting, never showing tiredness. She watched everything and everyone, her eyes missing nothing. When diplomats whispered, she seemed to hear them even from across the room. When officials made deals in the corners, she observed them all the time. The tattoo on her neck seemed to grow darker in the shadows of the hall. Emperor Dae-ho and his advisor Tae talked quietly on their high platform, looking down at the human ambassador. From time to time, they thought Earth would be easy to control, just another small world to add to their collection. They had done this hundreds of times before. Find a new planet, take what they want from it, and make the people think they were being helped. No one noticed how Gia's fingers traced the outline of her tattoo from time to time, or how the shadows in the corners of the room seemed to move and shift wherever she looked. No one saw how her shadow sometimes did not match her movements exactly, as if it had a mind of its own. When the meeting finally ended, Gia left the hall alone just as she had entered. Several Empire officials watched her go, already making plans for how they would take Earth's resources. The human had been polite but not very impressive. They thought Earth would be easy to deal with. They were wrong. The disappearance of 5,000 Imperial workers from the mining ships had caused panic throughout the Galactic Empire. Such a thing had never happened before in all their long history. Ships were lost sometimes, yes, but never with all crew vanishing. While the ships remained undamaged, it was impossible. Yet it had happened. The security systems on the mining ships showed nothing. No attackers, no boarders, no strange energy readings. One moment the crews were there, going about their normal work. The next they were gone, as if they had never existed. Emperor Dae-ho called an emergency meeting of his highest advisors. They gathered in the secure room deep under the Imperial Palace, a place where not even the most advanced listening devices could hear them. The Emperor sat at the head of the table, his face showing worry for the first time in many years. "What do we know?" asked the Emperor, looking at Intelligence Minister Han Su, a small man with sharp eyes who rarely spoke unless he had Fax. Minister Han activated a hologram, showing the mining ships. "We have analyzed all data from the ship's security systems." He said there was no breach, no attack, nothing entered or left the ships during the time of the disappearance. "That is impossible," said Defense Minister. "Go, how can 5,000 people vanish without a trace?" Minister Han shrugged. "The facts are the facts," he said. "Whatever happened, it was not something our sensors could detect." "Could it be some kind of new weapon?" asked Tae, the chief advisor. "Something the humans have developed in secret." Minister Han looked uncomfortable. "That is one possibility," he admitted, "though it seems unlikely. Earth is a young space civilization. They have only had faster than light travel for 30 years. How could they develop technology that can bypass all our security systems?" "Perhaps they had help," suggested General Wu, his uniform covered in medals from past wars. "They might have allied with someone else. Someone who gave them advanced technology." Who asked the Emperor with irritation. "No other civilization in the galaxy has shown such capabilities. Otherwise, they would have used them against us before now." The room fell silent as everyone considered this problem. It was true, no known species had technology that could do what had happened to those mining ships. "Something else concerns me," said Minister Han, quietly breaking the silence on 17 Imperial worlds. "There have been protests." "Protests," repeated the Emperor, his voice sharp. Minister Han nodded. "The families of the missing workers, they want answers. They are demanding we find their loved ones. Some are even suggesting we negotiate with Earth." "Negotiate," shouted General Wu, his face turning red with anger. "We don't negotiate with primitives, we crush them." Minister Han continued as if he hadn't heard the outburst. There is something else, the protesters. They are using a new symbol. It shows up in graffiti, on walls, in messages they send to each other. Displayed another hologram showing a simple drawing of a house standing on chicken legs, the same image that was tattooed on Ambassador Jia's son's neck. What does it mean? Asked the Emperor, staring at the image. We don't know exactly, said Minister Han, but our researchers have found references in old Earth folklore to something called Baba Yaga, a witch who lived in a house with chicken legs. She was known for punishing those who behaved badly and rewarding those who showed respect. Superstitious. Nonsense, said General Wu, but his voice was less certain than before. Nevertheless, said Minister Han, 17 worlds now have protest movements using this symbol, all demanding the return of the missing workers, all saying the same thing, the Baba. Yaga has claimed them. Summon the Earth Ambassador, ordered the Emperor. I want to speak with her privately, away from the public eye. Find out what she knows. Ambassador Jia arrived at the Emperor's private chambers 3 hours later. She wore the same simple black suit as before, her face calm and unreadable. 2 Imperial guards escorted her into the room where Emperor Deho waited alone. He had dismissed even his closest advisors for this meeting. The Emperor studied Jia as she entered the room, looking for signs of fear or nervousness, but saw none. She stood before him straight and calm, waiting for him to speak first. This irritated him. He was not used to waiting. What did your people do? He demanded, his earlier smugness replaced by barely controlled fury. Jia stood calmly before him. Do? She asked, her voice pleasant. We did nothing, Emperor. As you said, we're a weak, primitive world. How could we possibly challenge the mighty Empire? Don't play games with me. He hissed. 5,000 people. Don't just disappear if this is some new weapon. No weapon, Jia interrupted, her voice still calm but somehow stronger. No weapon, just a reminder that you know very little about Earth, about what we've survived, the wars, the famines, the plagues. Earth wasn't peaceful before we reached the stars. Emperor, we were forged in fire. She touched her tattoo again. This mark represents someone from our folklore. Baba Yaga. A witch who lived in a house with chicken legs. Those who respect her find help, those who don't. Superstitious nonsense, spat the Emperor. Your tricks won't save you. I've ordered a battle fleet to your solar system. They'll secure our mining operations and establish a permanent Imperial presence. Your world's brief independence ends in 2 weeks. The Emperor expected fear or pleading. Many representatives from small worlds had begged when faced with such threats. But Jia only nodded as if expecting this. Then I have a gift for you before I go, she said, placing a small wooden box on his desk. In Earth tradition, when a conflict becomes inevitable, we exchange tokens. The Emperor wanted to refuse to throw the box away without opening it. But after Jia left, curiosity overcame his caution. What harm could come from a small box, he thought as he reached for it. Inside was a single chicken feather, black and glossy, seemingly ordinary. Yet somehow it made the Emperor shiver. He called for his guards to take the feather and have it analyzed. But when they arrived, the feather was gone, leaving only a small dark mark on the desk, as if a shadow had burned into the surface. That night, Imperial Central Command lost contact with the entire battle fleet headed for Earth. 43 warships gone without explanation. No distress signals, no debris, no signs of battle. They simply disappeared from all tracking systems, one moment there, the next. Gone just like the mining crews before them. The disappearance of the battle fleet could not be hidden. It was the pride of Imperial power, the strongest military force sent against any world in decades. Its loss sent waves of fear through the Empire. Rumors spread faster than official statements could counter them. People began to whisper about Earth, about its strange ambassador, and her witch mark in 32 Imperial worlds now. Not just 17, the protest movements grew stronger. Crowds gathered in streets and public spaces holding signs with the chicken-legged house drawing demanding the return of their missing family. Members, the Emperor's face appeared on screens across the Empire, trying to calm the people, promising that everything was under control. But for the first time in hundreds of years, people did not believe him. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Deho sat alone in his private room, staring at the mark on his desk where the feather had been. He thought about Ambassador Jia, about her calm face, and the strange tattoo he had mocked months ago. Now that image haunted his dreams. Sometimes he woke in The night thinking he heard chicken feet scratching outside his window. Military reports came in hourly. Some captains refusing orders saying their crews would not fight against Earth, rumors spreading that any ship sent against the humans would disappear without trace like the others. The mighty empire built over 2,000 years was beginning to crack from fear. Not of fleets or weapons, but of something they couldn't understand. Something from old stories that should have been just superstition. On Earth, Ambassador Gia met with the Defense Council again, sitting at the same round table. But the mood was different now. The Earth leaders looked at her with new respect, and perhaps a touch of fear. "What happens next?" asked President Kang, looking at Gia carefully. Gia touched her tattoo. "They will call for an emergency session of the Imperial Council. She said they will try to find a solution that lets them save face while giving us what we want." "And the missing Imperial crews?" asked General Suk. "Are they really safe?" Gia nodded. "They are comfortable in the habitation spheres we prepared. They have food, water, entertainment. They are not prisoners, just guests until the Empire learns its lesson." "How did we do this?" whispered Minister Huan. "The technology required to teleport so many people." Gia smiled but did not answer. She looked at the clock on the wall. "The Emperor's advisor will contact me in approximately 10 minutes. She said they want to negotiate right on time 10 minutes later." Gia's communication device signaled an incoming call. The Emperor was requesting her presence for another private meeting. But this time his message did not contain threats, only a simple request, please. 3 months had passed since Earth joined the galactic community. Things seemed peaceful at first. The Empire sent trade ships to Earth, offering technology and goods in exchange for resources. Many humans were excited about these new opportunities. They thought the aliens were being friendly and helpful. But Ambassador Gia Sun warned the Earth leaders to be careful. She did not trust the Empire. She had seen how they looked at Earth like a rich meal waiting to be eaten. The trouble started when a big mining company from the Empire called Star Harvest sent ships to the asteroid belt in Earth's solar system. Without asking permission, they landed on the biggest asteroids and began drilling for metals and rare minerals. When Earth sent messages asking what they were doing, the company ignored them. Gia met with the Earth Defense Council in their underground base near the old city of Seoul. She sat at the round table with 12 military and government leaders, all of them looking worried. General Suk, the head of Earth's small space fleet, showed images of the mining ships on the big screen. They were huge, much bigger than anything Earth had built. "These ships arrived 3 days ago. He said they have already set up mining operations on 7 major asteroids. When we sent patrol ships to investigate, they were warned to stay away." President Kang, a tall woman with gray hair, frowned. "What right do they have to take our resources?" she asked. "They did not even tell us they were coming." Gia touched the tattoo on her neck, a habit she had when thinking. "They are using Section 47 of the Galactic Resource Charter." She said, "The one about unclaimed properties." "But those asteroids belong to Earth," said Defense Minister Huan, his face red with anger. "They are in our solar system." Gia nodded. "They added that section to the treaty after we signed the main document. It was in the small print. They often do this to new worlds. They let them join, then use legal tricks to take what they want." "What can we do?" asked the president. "We cannot fight their ships. They have weapons far stronger than ours." Gia looked around the table at each face. Earth had choices. She said, "We can protest through official channels, or we can show them we are not as weak." As they think, her hand moved to a small device on her wrist. It looked like a simple bracelet. But it was much more. The council voted to send 2 patrol ships to deliver an official protest to the mining operation. The ships were small, but the newest Earth had built. They carried 20 crew members each and had basic weapons. Nothing that could really hurt the huge mining ships, but they wanted to show that Earth was serious. The patrol ships flew to the asteroid belt with orders to be polite, but firm they were to tell the mining company that they were trespassing on Earth property and must leave. Captain Yi led the mission. He was young, but respected a good choice for such an important job. When the Earth ships approached the mining operation, they sent messages asking to speak with the person in charge. At first there was no answer. Then finally a bored voice responded. "This is Supervisor Du Young of Star Harvest. What do you want?" Captain Yi explained that the asteroids belonged to Earth, and the company was mining without permission. There was silence then. Laughter, you signed the Galactic Charter, said Du Young. That means these unclaimed rocks are available to anyone who can use them. Captain. Yi tried to explain that Earth did not agree to that part of the charter, but the mining supervisor cut him off. We have legal rights here, little human, he said. Now go away before you get hurt. Captain. Yi was angry, but he followed orders. He kept his voice calm as he said, Earth demands that Star Harvest cease all mining operations and leave this solar system within 24 hours. He waited for a response. What happened next shocked everyone on both patrol ships without warning. Large energy beams shot out from the mining ships, hitting both Earth vessels. The beams cut through their shields like they were nothing. Captain Yi had only enough time to send one message back to Earth before his ship exploded. The second patrol ship tried to escape, but was destroyed before it could jump to hyperspace. All 40 crew members died in seconds. Back on Earth, the Defense Council watched the message from Captain Yi. His face filled with fear as he shouted, They're firing on us. There the recording ended with static and darkness. The room was silent as everyone realized what had happened. We must respond, said General Suk, his voice shaking with anger. They killed our people, but how, asked Minister Huan. They have technology, hundreds of years ahead of ours. We would be destroyed if we sent our fleet. Jia stood up, her face calm but her eyes burning with cold fire. I will handle this, she said. I need an emergency meeting with the Imperial Council. The Earth leaders looked at her with doubt. What can one meeting do? Asked the president. They obviously don't respect us or our rights. Jia touched her tattoo again. They will learn to respect us, she said softly. They just need the right lesson. 3 days later, Ambassador Jia stood once again in the grand meeting hall of the Galactic Empire. This time the mood was different. The Empire officials did not laugh or joke. They sat stiffly in their seats. Some looked nervous, others angry. Emperor Dai Ho sat on his throne, looking down at Jia with cold eyes beside him. Tay, his advisor, whispered. In his the Human Confederation finds these actions unacceptable, said Jia, her voice calm, but carrying through the silent hall. We demand the immediate withdrawal of all corporate forces from our system and compensation for our destroyed ships and the families of our murdered crew. Du Young. The mining company representative stood up from his seat, his face twisted with anger. Your patrol ships threatened our legal operation. He said we defended our workers and our investment. Jia looked at him without blinking. Your ships fired without warning on unarmed vessels. She said they murdered 40 people who were delivering a diplomatic message. Du Young waved his hand dismissively. Your legal claim is weak. He said the asteroids were unclaimed. According to Section 47 of the Galactic Resource Charter, which Earth signed upon joining the community. In fine print added. After we signed the main document, replied Jia. Her voice still quiet but somehow filling the room. Everyone could hear her, clearly even those sitting far away. Emperor Dai Ho sighed dramatically, making a show of his patience. Ambassador. He said, This is how civilized space operates. Strong worlds prosper, weak ones adapt. Perhaps your people should focus on technological advancement rather than complaints. His eyes moved to her neck where the tattoo was visible above her collar. Still wearing that primitive marking, I see. Is it meant to frighten us more? Laughter moved through the chamber. Though quieter than before, some of the diplomats were watching Jia carefully, noticing how calm she remained in the face of such disrespect. Jia touched the tattoo gently. It's a reminder, she said, of a very old story about what happens when you enter someone's house uninvited. She paused. Or take what isn't yours. Quaint, said the Emperor. But stories won't protect your world. The mining operation continues. We will, however, offer compensation for your lost ships. He named a sum that was only 1/10 the value of the destroyed vessels, nothing for the lost lives. Jia looked at him for a long moment, then bowed slightly. Very well, she said. You have made your choice clear. So have we's. She walked out of the chamber. Several diplomats noticed something strange about her shadow. It seemed darker than it should be, and for just a moment it looked like it had a different shape. Almost like a small house on legs, but that couldn't be right. That night, Jia made a call on her communication device. They've made their choice, she said. Simply release the protocols, all of them. Then she touched her tattoo and whispered an old Russian name, one that had not been spoken in the Grand Hall. but would soon echo through the Empire. At that exact moment, every mining ship in Earth's asteroid belt went silent simultaneously. All communication stopped, all power readings disappeared when Imperial investigators arrived. A day later, they found something impossible. The ships were all there intact, undamaged, but completely empty. 5,000. Workers and security personnel had vanished without a trace. Not a single body remained, only empty halls and rooms, with meals half-eaten and equipment still running. Fear began to spread through the Empire. Panic swept through the Empire like a storm. The disappearance of the entire battle fleet. The pride of Imperial power was impossible to hide or explain away. 40. 3 warships gone without a trace. Nearly 70,000 crew members vanished. Just like the mining ship workers before them, it was the greatest military disaster in 2,000 years of Imperial history. And no one understood how it had happened. In an emergency session of the Imperial Council, discussions grew heated, and fearful voices that were once confident now shook with uncertainty. Faces that once showed only pride now showed fear. The grand meeting hall that had once mocked the human ambassador now buzzed with whispers about Earth and its strange powers. Must launch a full-scale attack, insisted General Min, pounding the table with his fist. Destroy their world before they strike again. We still have ships we can send 100 times more than before. Tay Rim, the Emperor's advisor, shook his head, his usual smooth confidence gone, his face pale with stress. With what ships, he asked? Half our fleet commanders are refusing orders, claiming their crews will mutiny if sent against Earth. Impossible, shouted the general. They are Imperial soldiers. They must obey. Minister Han Su slid a data tablet toward the center of the table. We have intercepted communications between Earth and 17 worlds in our empire, he said quietly. Revolutionary movements are growing, all inspired by Earth's resistance. They call Ambassador Jia the Baba Yaga, now a spirit of vengeance against Imperial oppression. The Emperor, who had been silent until now, looked up, his face showing his age in a way it never had before. Where is the ambassador now? He asked, his voice tired. Tay Rim checked his datapad. She requested this meeting slot. Actually, he said nervously, she should be arriving. The doors to the grand hall swung open, and everyone turned to look. Ambassador Jia entered, but not alone. This time beside her walked a tall man with silver at his temples, dressed in a simple gray uniform with no decorations or rank markings. He looked ordinary, not like a military leader or powerful warrior, but something about his calm eyes made even the bravest Imperial generals feel uneasy. This is General Jin Park, Jia announced, her voice clear in the silent room. Earth's Minister of Consequence. General Jin nodded politely to the council. I have come to explain what happens next, he said, his voice gentle but firm like a teacher. Speaking to confused students, Emperor Daeho found his voice. Your ships, your technology. How did you hide it from us? Our scans showed nothing. Advanced in your system. Jin Park smiled slightly. We didn't hide ships, Emperor. We don't need them. He activated a small projector that displayed an image of what looked like a simple metal bracelet, like the one Ambassador Jia wore on her wrist. It seemed too plain to be important, but everyone in the room stared at it with growing understanding and fear. 300 years ago, Earth nearly destroyed itself in war. Jin explained, from those ashes we discovered something: quantum entanglement on a biological level. Personal teleportation, no ships needed. He gestured at the bracelet, one of these for each of your missing personnel. They are quite comfortable in the habitation spheres we prepared. You're holding them hostage, growled General Min, his hand moving toward his weapon. Not hostage, corrected Jia. Protected from their own empire's aggression, they will be returned when we have guarantees of peace. Tay Rim leaned forward. How do we know they are alive? He asked, his voice suspicious. How do we know this isn't just a trick, General? Jin nodded, as if he had expected this question. He touched his own bracelet, and a large hologram appeared in the center of the council chamber, showing thousands of Imperial citizens living in large domed structures. Some were working in gardens, others relaxing in recreation areas. Children played in parks. All seemed healthy and calm. A live feed from Habitat 7. Jin said there are 40 such habitats spread throughout uninhabited systems. We can arrange communication between the citizens and their families, if you wish. The council members stared at the Images in silence, their minds struggling to accept what they were seeing. Their missing people were alive and well, not harmed or imprisoned, but simply relocated through technology. The Empire had never imagined possible. Emperor Deho stood up from his throne, stepping down to the main floor. Something no emperor had done in council for hundreds of years, he walked slowly toward Jia, and Jin stopping a few steps away. Why, he asked simply, why not just destroy our ships? Why take our people? Jia touched her tattoo, the same gesture the council had seen before. Earth does not want war, Emperor. She said, we want respect. We want to be treated as equals, not as a resource to be harvested. We could have destroyed your ships. Yes, but that would only lead to more fighting, more death. Neither side would win in the end. General Jin added, Earth remembers its own history. Emperor, we fought ourselves for centuries before looking to the stars. We learned the hardest way possible that cooperation yields more than domination. We won't allow the mistakes of our past to become the future of this galaxy. Rim, who had been thinking quickly as always, saw a chance to salvage something from this disaster. What do you want from us? He asked. What are your demands? Jia smiled. Not demands, she said, offers Earth. Proposes a new charter for the galaxy, one based on mutual respect and cooperation. All worlds equal under law. All resources shared. Fairly according to need, not power. Impossible, muttered several council members. The Empire was built on the principle that the strong ruled the weak. That was the natural order of things. Is it impossible? Asked General Jin, looking around the room. Your empire faces revolution on dozens of worlds. Your military refuses to fight. Your citizens protest in the streets, all because you would not treat one small world with basic respect. We offer you a chance to transform, not to fall for the next 3 hours. The council debated while Jia and Jin waited patiently, sometimes answering questions, sometimes just listening. Opinions were divided. Some wanted to find other weapons to use against Earth. Others saw the wisdom in the human proposal. In the end, exhausted and with no better options, the Emperor raised his hand for silence. We will consider your new charter, he said carefully. We need time to review the details, of course, said Jia. We understand this is a significant change. She touched her bracelet and a data transfer activated, sending the proposed charter to every council member's personal device. In the meantime, we will return 1,000 of your citizens as a show of good faith. The council chamber buzzed with surprise. This was not how warfare was supposed to work. Enemies did not release prisoners before negotiations were complete, but Earth seemed to follow different rules. As the meeting concluded, Ambassador Jia and General Jin prepared to leave, but the Emperor stepped forward again. One question. He said, his voice quiet enough that only they could hear it. You could have destroyed us at any time with this technology of yours. Why didn't you play along with our games for months? Jin looked at the Emperor with something like pity in his eyes. Because the goal was never to destroy you. He said the goal was to teach us what. Asked the Emperor. Jia answered that power is not the same as right. That strength without wisdom destroys itself in the end. That respect must be earned, not taken. Her hand moved to her tattoo in our oldest stories. Baba, Yaga was not evil, Emperor. She was balanced. Those who approached her with greed or malice found consequences. Yes, but those who came with respect and honest need found help as they walked away. Many in the council room noticed something strange about Jin and Jia. Their shadows seemed to merge and shift on the floor behind them for just a moment, forming the shape of a small house standing on what looked like chicken legs. But surely that was just a trick of the light. That night across the Empire, millions of citizens watched news reports about the return of 1,000 people who had vanished from the mining ships and battle fleet. They appeared suddenly in public squares on their home worlds, all healthy, all telling the same story of comfortable captivity and kind treatment. Many wearing small wooden tokens carved with the image of a house on chicken legs. More importantly, they brought stories about Earth, not of a primitive backwater world, but of an ancient civilization that had nearly destroyed itself with war before finding a better way. They spoke of Earth, not with fear but with respect, and those who listened began to wonder if perhaps the Empire could learn from humans, instead of conquering them. In his private chamber, Emperor Deho read the proposed Earth Charter, discovering to his surprise that it did not demand the dismantling of the Empire, or punishment for past actions. Instead, it offered transformation, evolution into something that might last, far longer than an empire built on fear and force. He looked at the mark on his desk where the chicken feather had been, and for the first time in many years, he felt something new. Hope. 3 weeks had passed since the emergency council meeting and everything had changed. The Galactic Senate chamber had never been so quiet, as representatives from 72 worlds formerly protected by the Empire gathered to sign the new charter. One by one, they walked to the central platform where the document waited, each adding their mark to create something new in the galaxy. A union of equals not built on fear but on mutual respect and cooperation. Ambassador Gia Sun stood watching from a raised platform, her simple black suit now joined by a small silver pin in the shape of Earth. The only decoration she allowed herself beside her stood General Jin and several other humans who had come from Earth to witness this historic moment. They did not cheer or celebrate loudly as each signature was added, but their quiet pride was clear to all who watched. Emperor Dae-ho, now merely the representative of his homeworld, approached the podium where Gia stood, his golden robes replaced by simpler clothing that still showed his status but with less overwhelming display. The change in his appearance matched the change in his empire. It was still powerful, still important, but no longer dominant above all others. You've destroyed everything. We built over 2,000 years, he said quietly to Gia, his voice not angry, just sad at seeing the old order fade away. Gia shook her head. No, we've transformed it. Your empire was built on fear. What rises now will be built on respect. She gestured. To the gathered representatives, some who had been bitter enemies under the old system now talking together, making plans for trade and cooperation. The first steps toward trust. And if someone doesn't respect your new order, he challenged, there will always be those who prefer the old ways, who see power as the only truth. Gia touched her tattoo thoughtfully in the original story. Baba Yaga wasn't evil. She was a force of balance. Those who approached with humility and honest intent found help. Those who came with greed or malice found consequences. She looked directly into his eyes. Earth spent centuries fighting itself before looking to the stars. We learned the hardest way possible, that cooperation yields more than domination. We won't allow the mistakes of our past to become the future of this galaxy. The former emperor nodded slowly, understanding now better than he had before. What has happened to my battle fleet and the mining crews, he asked. Will they be returned? Now General Jin stepped forward, joining the conversation. All of your people will return today, he said. They have been told what has happened. They know of the new charter. Most welcome it, though some may take time to adjust. He smiled. Such change is never easy, but it is necessary across the galaxy. At that very moment, the remaining 42,000 Imperial soldiers and 5,000 mining workers appeared on their homeworlds, stepping out of thin air into public spaces, markets, government buildings, parks, and streets, all healthy, all unharmed, many smiling as they reunited with shocked family members who had feared they might never return. The strongest proof possible that Earth kept its promises. The most common question the returned people heard was, "What happened to you? Where were you?" Most gave similar answers. They described comfortable domes with earth plants and animals, good food, clean water, entertainment, and learning facilities. They told of meeting humans who taught them about Earth history and culture, who asked about their own worlds and families, who treated them not as prisoners but as guests waiting for peace. Even more surprising, many of the returned Imperial citizens, especially the younger ones, wore small wooden pendants, carved with the image of a house on chicken legs. They spoke of the Baba Yaga, not with fear but with respect, as a symbol of balance and justice. Many had asked to keep the pendants as reminders of what they had learned. Some even had tattoos like Ambassador Gia's small versions drawn on wrists or shoulders. The image that had once been mocked in the Imperial court was now spreading throughout the galaxy, carrying its message back in the Senate chamber. The signing ceremony continued, but Gia noticed something important. The delegates from different worlds were talking to each other, making plans together, sometimes with loud disagreements but always with basic respect. The new charter was just paper. The real change was happening in these conversations, people seeing each other as equals for the first time. Tae-rim, the former chief advisor to the emperor, now serving as a regular delegate, approached Gia with a data pad. I have been reviewing your proposal for the new trade routes, he said, his voice professional without the mockery it once held. These could benefit many worlds, not just Earth. Gia nodded, taking the pad and scanning it quickly. The routes look good, she said, but I suggest adding stops at the outer worlds. Also, they have resources that have been overlooked. Rim considered this, then nodded. You may be right, he admitted. It is easy to forget the smaller worlds at the edges. But they matter too. This simple exchange represented everything Gia had hoped for when she first arrived in the Imperial Chamber months ago. Not Earth ruling over others, but all worlds working together, each contributing what they could, each receiving what they needed. Balance, not dominance. As Gia prepared to return to Earth, now the diplomatic center of the new Confederation, Emperor Deho approached her one final time. Your tattoo, he said. I understand its meaning now, but I'm curious, do all Earth diplomats bear such marks? Gia smiled. No. Just those of us in a very specific division, the Department of Consequence Management. She rolled up her sleeve slightly, revealing more of the tattoo extending down her arm. The full image is the chicken-legged hut surrounded by a forest of bones, a reminder that even the smallest homes should be approached with respect. Worlds like people deserve their dignity. As she walked away, the former emperor noticed something unsettling as Gia passed through patches of shadow for just a heartbeat. Her silhouette seemed to shift into something much taller. Something crowned with antlers and feathers, with what looked like a small house following behind her. But surely that was just a trick of the light, a mind seeing what it expected, rather than what was really there. Over the next year, the new Confederation grew stronger. Worlds that had once been bitter enemies began working together, solving problems that had seemed impossible under the old empire. Diseases were cured, water brought to dry planets, food to hungry people, knowledge shared freely. The galaxy did not become perfect overnight. There were still conflicts, still disagreements, but they were resolved through talking, not fighting, through respect. Not fear. Ambassador Gia returned to Earth occasionally, but spent most of her time traveling between worlds, helping to build the new system, watching it grow like a careful gardener. On many planets, people told stories about her quiet strength, about the strange tattoo on her neck. Some claimed they had seen her shadow change shape when she wasn't looking. Others said that those who broke the new rules often found a black feather on their desk the next morning. But these were just stories. Surely, what was not a story was how the galaxy had changed. What was not a story was how people from different worlds now work together. What was not a story was how the meaning of power had shifted from control to cooperation. The old empire faded, not through war, but through transformation, becoming something better, something that might last far longer. On a small planet at the edge of the Confederation, a group of children sat in a circle while their teacher told them the old story of Baba Yaga and her house with chicken legs. The story had changed over time, as stories do. Now it was about balance and respect, about consequences, but also about help for those who needed it most. When the teacher finished, one child asked, "Is it true the Baba Yaga still watches over us?" The teacher smiled, touching a small wooden pendant around her neck. Sometimes the most important stories are the ones we make true by how we live. She said, remember the lesson. Respect what isn't yours, protect what is. Seek balance in all things. If we all remember that, then yes, Baba Yaga watches over us through our own actions. As the children left the school that day, some noticed a tall woman with short black hair watching from across the street. A visitor from another world, they thought, seeing her simple black suit and the small earth pin. But when the wind moved her collar, they caught a glimpse of a strange tattoo on her neck. Before she turned and walked away, her shadow stretching behind her in the setting sun, looking for just a moment, like a small house walking on chicken legs. No, empire lasts forever, but stories and the truths they carry endure throughout the galaxy. Now ambitious powers think twice before threatening smaller worlds, not from fear of fleets or weapons, but from whispered warnings about diplomats with strange tattoos and what happens when the Baba Yaga turns her gaze upon those who cross the line. For in the vast darkness between stars, respect proves the better part of survival.